They left her for dead on a beach that didn't exist on any map, pinned under concrete and shrapnel, blood running into her eyes, listening to the sound of helicopter rotors fading into nothing. Her own team, her own people gone. But what they didn't understand was simple. You can't kill someone who was already trained to die, and you definitely can't abandon someone who never learned the meaning of surrender. The North Atlantic hit Chief Petty Officer Alex Shaw like a physical blow, driving the breath from her lungs. But she'd been swimming in water like this since she was 12 years old, following her grandfather's lobster traps off the Maine coast. Cold was just another enemy you learned to ignore. 22 years in the Navy, 15 of them with special operations. Alex had done extractions in Somalia, hostage rescues in the Philippines, and direct action raids in places that didn't officially exist. At 42, she was one of the oldest active-duty female operators. Her body a map of scars earned in service to her country. The jagged line across her right shoulder from a machete in Mogadishu. The puckered circle on her thigh from a Russian-made bullet in Chechnya. Her father had been a SEAL too, part of the teams that fought in Desert Storm. Before him, her grandfather had stormed the beaches at Normandy. The Shaw family had salt water and gunpowder in their veins. "The sea doesn't care if you're scared, little ghost," her grandfather would say, his face weathered by decades of sun and spray. "It only cares if you're prepared." The same could be said for combat. Fear was irrelevant. Preparation was everything. Now, as she slipped over the side of the rubber hull into hostile waters 3 clicks from shore, Alex prepared herself for what should have been a simple extraction. But she'd been doing this long enough to know there was no such thing as simple when it came to spec ops. The beach was a slash of black sand against cliffs that looked like broken teeth. Above them, the village of Puerto Negro clung to the rocks like barnacles. Intelligence said the target was in the third building from the harbor. A local informant with a briefcase full of names that could roll up an entire weapons pipeline from Central America to the Gulf Coast. Task Force Shadowhawk was led by Commander Daniel Foster. At 57, Foster was a legend, a former Delta Force operator with close-cropped silver hair and perpetually narrowed eyes that gave him the look of an aging predator. Alex had known him for years, ever since he'd served with her father in Iraq. When her father's body came home draped in the flag, it was Foster who had handed her the folded triangle of stars and stripes at the funeral, his eyes never quite meeting hers. "Your father was a patriot," he'd said. "He died saving his team." Alex had accepted the story because she had to, but over the years, fragments of doubt began to crystallize. The official report said her father died when an IED detonated near Fallujah, but Random didn't explain why his personal effects included a thumb drive hidden in a false compartment of his watch, containing partial files about weapons shipments connected to senior military personnel. Working under Foster now was a study in compartmentalization. She respected his tactical brilliance while harboring deep reservations about his true allegiances. As they moved inland, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something carefully constructed. The gully they were following was too perfect. Natural choke point, high ground on both sides, limited egress routes. 4 locals emerged from the shadows ahead, serving as friendly militia escorts to guide them to the target building. The militia leader's English was too good, his smile too wide. And when he gestured toward a narrow cut between 2 buildings, Alex noticed he wasn't pointing toward the harbor. He was steering them inland, deeper into the maze of collapsed structures. She leaned close to Foster's ear. "Something's wrong." He gave her the look that said she was being paranoid. "Stay sharp, but we're committed." That was the moment Alex knew they were all going to die. As they followed the militia deeper into Puerto Negro's broken streets, one of the younger guides caught her eye and tapped his rifle twice with his index finger, the universal signal for danger. 30 meters into the narrow passage, the militia leader stopped and pointed to a weathered wooden door. "Inside, your man waits with the briefcase." As their breaching expert approached the threshold, Alex saw the young militiaman backing away from his group. Her hand tightened on her weapon. Check, she said quietly into her comm, the team's code word for imminent threat. Contact, Alex barked, already diving for cover as the first shots rang out. The explosion split the air apart, followed by the whistle of shrapnel. Alex hit the dirt as the world came apart around her, concrete chips raining down like hail. Muzzle flashes strobed from the rooftops, painting the gully in stark white and black. The second charge detonated under the building to her right. The entire structure pancaked in on itself, tons of concrete collapsing into the narrow alley. The blast wave slammed her sideways, pinning her left arm under a chunk of masonry the size of a refrigerator. Through dust and smoke, she caught glimpses of the team retreating. The distinctive sound of rotor blades echoed off canyon walls, the extraction helicopter arriving to pull the survivors out of hell. Hayes! Someone shouted. Where's Hayes? She tried to signal, but the debris shifted and pain like white lightning tore through her shoulder. All she could do was watch as her teammates loaded wounded and made the decision that would define the rest of her life. The helicopter lifted off with 7 men aboard. She wasn't one of them. Through a gap in the rubble, illuminated by the fading light of the departing helicopter, she saw Foster's face framed in the door of the Black Hawk. He was looking directly at her position, and he wasn't surprised. There was no shock of discovery, no moment of horrified recognition that a teammate had been left behind. His eyes were cold, calculating, as if confirming the completion of an unspoken objective. He had seen her. He had known she was there, and he had chosen to leave her behind. Alex Shaw lay pinned under half a ton of concrete, alone in hostile territory, left for dead by her own commander. Fragments of memory surfaced from her SEER training at Fort Bragg. Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. The instructor's voice echoed, "Pain is just information. Injury is just another tactical problem to solve. Your body will tell you it's impossible. Your mind decides whether to believe it." She dragged herself out from under the debris. Her right leg wasn't just bruised. Something was wrong with the knee. Standing was going to be interesting. Walking was going to be agony. She salvaged what she could. Her rifle was destroyed, but she found a field dressing, a broken knife blade, and most importantly, her emergency radio. The case was cracked and one antenna snapped off, but when she pressed the power button, a weak red light flickered to life. If she was going to survive, she needed high ground. The old Soviet listening post mentioned in their briefing was still up there somewhere. All she had to do was climb a 100-foot cliff face with a busted knee and one working arm. "Well," she said aloud, "this ought to be fun." The cliff face was a vertical maze of handholds and death traps. Every pull with her injured arm sent fire through her shoulder. Halfway up, as she clung to the rock with bleeding hands, Alex's mind drifted to a hunting trip with her father. He'd squatted next to her when she'd reached her breaking point on a brutal mountain ascent. "When your body says no," he told her, "that's when your mind gets to vote. And mind always outranks body, little ghost." Now Alex cast that vote. She kept climbing because the alternative was lying down in the rubble and waiting to die. The bunker, when she finally found it, looked like something out of a Cold War nightmare. Inside, she improvised an antenna for her emergency radio and keyed the emergency code. 3 short, 1 long. Just as the battery indicator dropped to critical, she heard an American voice through the static. "Unknown station. Authenticate with alternate frequency. Viper base, this is Shadowhawk 7. Authenticate Bravo Alpha 77. Shadowhawk 7, we show you KIA as of 600 hours. Confirm your status." "Viper base, Shadowhawk 7 is alive and mobile. Team extracted without me." Through the broken windows, she could see flashlights moving along the beach below. The militia had figured out she wasn't dead and were beginning the hunt. Time to move. She found a maintenance tunnel and crawled into the darkness. The voices got louder behind her. Men who thought they were hunting a wounded animal had no idea what they were actually dealing with. 3 hours later, she found a vertical shaft leading to a concealed exit near the tide line. She set up her radio antenna, aligned it toward the open ocean, and keyed the mic. Viper Base, Shadowhawk 7, I'm in position for extraction. The response was immediate. Shadowhawk 7, we have assets inbound. ETA 30 minutes. She settled behind the rocks and started counting minutes. Voices echoed from the tunnel mouth. They'd found her trail. Alex smiled grimly and shifted her grip on a rusty piece of rebar. Time to remind them why they called her a ghost. Alex Shaw woke to the steady beep of medical equipment aboard a vessel called the USS Mitchell. Captain James Carter, her father's oldest friend and now her rescuer, stood beside her bed. "Where am I?" Alex's voice came out as a rasp. "The Mitchell doesn't exist on any naval registry. Consider it a ghost ship for ghost operations." "And Foster? The rest of Task Force Shadowhawk?" "Commander Foster filed the after-action report listing you as KIA. Your memorial service is scheduled for next week at Norfolk." The news landed like a physical blow, official confirmation of betrayal, of being written off by her own commander. "He saw me, James. Before the helicopter lifted off, he looked directly at me and chose to leave." Carter nodded grimly. "I believe you, but the official record tells a different story." Alex processed this information. He's protecting someone called Phoenix 6. At the mention of the designation, Carter's posture shifted subtly. He glanced toward the door, ensuring they were alone. "I've been tracking Phoenix 6 for nearly 20 years, he said quietly, "ever since your father died." The statement hung in the air, heavy with implication. "My father didn't die in an IED attack, did he?" "No, Alex, he didn't." Carter explained how her father had discovered shipments of American weapons being diverted from official channels to unknown recipients. Evidence of high-ranking officers involved in operations with no congressional oversight. He tried to report it to the one person he thought he could trust, his commanding officer and oldest friend, Daniel Foster. And Foster was already part of it, Alex whispered, had been from the beginning. Carter showed her files he'd been assembling for years. "Together we're going to map the entire Phoenix 6 network, every member, every operation, every financial connection, and then we're going to burn it to the ground." Alex nodded, accepting the parameters of the mission ahead. This was justice delayed 15 years. This was vindication for her father and for herself. 3 days later, in a secure facility beneath an office building in Arlington, Alex sat analyzing data recovered from Puerto Negro. The organizational chart taking shape revealed Phoenix 6 consisted of 7 individuals, including Lieutenant General Robert Harrison, Deputy Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. "They're creating proxy armies," Carter observed, "arming selected groups to advance American interests without official sanction." "More than that," Alex corrected, "they're manufacturing conflicts, creating instability in regions where American intervention can then be justified." To bring down an organization this embedded in the system, they needed an alternative approach. Carter had a contact codenamed Keystone in the office of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. They would set up a dead drop, physical evidence at a predetermined location. Keystone would initiate simultaneous arrests of all Phoenix 6 members, but one element remained unaddressed. Foster. Commander Foster is scheduled to deploy on a training exercise to Camp Lejeune in 3 days, Carter said. His route will take him through the Great Dismal Swamp. Remote terrain, minimal surveillance coverage. The implication was clear. Carter was offering her Foster, vulnerable in a location where an encounter could occur without witnesses. "That would be convenient," she said, her voice neutral despite the surge of emotion. "Very." Carter didn't elaborate further. The Great Dismal Swamp stretched over 112,000 acres of forested wetland. Alex positioned herself where Foster's vehicle would pass after experiencing a mechanical failure that would force him to pull over in an area with poor cell reception. When Foster emerged from his SUV, Alex approached from his blind spot. "Hello, Commander." Foster spun, shock registering in the widening of his eyes. "Shaw, you're dead." "So I've been told." Foster recovered quickly. "What do you want? If you're looking for an apology for prioritizing the mission over a single operator, you won't get it. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for truth." Phoenix 6. "What is it? Who are they? And why did they want me dead?" Instead of denying it, Foster asked, "How much do you know?" "Enough to understand that my father discovered something he shouldn't have. Enough to know that you gave the order that killed him." Foster explained how Phoenix 6 formed after the Soviet Union's collapse, operating beyond congressional oversight to protect American interests. There was conviction in his voice, the certainty of someone who believed absolutely in their cause. "Your father understood that in the beginning. He was part of Phoenix 6's operational arm before his conscience began to trouble him." This revelation hit Alex like a physical blow. Her father involved in the very organization that had ultimately ordered his death? "You're lying. Why do you think he was in a position to discover those shipments in the first place?" Foster revealed that Phoenix 6 knew she had survived, that their entire investigation had been monitored. "Your friend Keystone is a Phoenix 6 asset positioned precisely to identify and neutralize threats from within the system." "Why tell me this?" Alex asked. "Why not simply have me eliminated?" "Because Phoenix 6 sees potential in you. They're offering you a choice. Join the program or remain a threat to be neutralized." Foster handed her a data drive containing operational details of Phoenix 6, then left her with a chilling revelation. Her father's last words had been, "She'll find you. Eventually, she'll understand, and she'll find you." In a motel room outside Washington, Alex examined Foster's data drive. It contained Phoenix 6's organizational charts, mission histories, and financial structures. But it also included a personal file labeled John Shaw. Her father had not been a willing participant in Phoenix 6. He'd been recruited under false pretenses into what he believed was a legitimate oversight committee. Once he discovered the truth, he began collecting evidence to bring down the entire operation. The final entry, dated 3 days before his death, revealed he had arranged to meet a journalist. That meeting never occurred. Alex now understood. Phoenix 6 was vulnerable not through conventional channels but through exposure. Their power derived from secrecy. She contacted Catherine Morgan, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, using a contingency number Carter had provided. They arranged to meet at a hotel in Baltimore. For 3 hours, Alex walked the journalist through the evidence: the weapons caches, shell companies, falsified reports, targeted assassinations. Morgan's team verified key elements in real time. "You understand what happens when we publish?" Morgan asked. "The institutional backlash will be unprecedented. They'll come after you with everything they have." "They already think I'm dead," Alex replied, "and I'm prepared to stay that way if necessary. This isn't about me. It's about accountability." As they finished, an explosion rocked the building. Gunfire erupted in the hallway, professional hitters making a coordinated assault. "Phoenix 6 found us," Alex said, moving toward the service door. "The evidence already uploaded to secure servers with dead man switches," Morgan assured her. "If I don't enter a code every 6 hours, it goes live on every major news platform simultaneously." Alex escaped through maintenance corridors, but at each turn, tactical teams anticipated her route. Someone had compromised their plan. She emerged into an alley and received a call from Lieutenant Rebecca Lawson, who had piloted the extraction craft in Porto Negro. "Northeastern parking garage, level 2, south corner, 10 minutes." In the garage, Alex found a motorcycle with a helmet. As she secured it, Daniel Foster stepped out of the shadows. I told you Phoenix 6 was always 3 moves ahead, he said quietly. They've had Morgan under surveillance since she won that Pulitzer. Did you set this up? Alex kept her weapon trained on his chest. I'm here to offer you one last chance, Foster said. They're going to find you. It's only a matter of time. He tossed her a set of keys and a passport. This leads to a cabin in Montana. Off-grid. New identity, clean history, enough cash to disappear permanently. Why would you help me escape? Because John Shaw was my friend. Because maybe saving his daughter balances the scales. At least a little. Alex thought of her father's last words. She'll find you. Not she'll run. Not she'll hide. No deal, she said. This ends today. She revealed that while they'd been talking, the evidence had been uploading to Morgan's secure server. It's over, Foster. For the first time, Commander Foster looked genuinely shocked. Lieutenant Lawson stepped into view, her service weapon aimed at Foster. Well said, Commander Shaw. Military police are already arresting Lieutenant General Harrison at the Pentagon, Lawson informed them. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs authorized the operation personally after receiving evidence this morning. Keystone, Foster breathed. Turns out your intelligence wasn't as perfect as you thought, Alex said. Keystone was a double agent, feeding Phoenix 6 carefully selected information while working with Carter to build the case against you. Foster's shoulders slumped. For what it's worth, I never wanted any of this. We started with the best intentions. So does everyone who ends up damning themselves, Alex replied. 6 months later, the Washington Post headline read, Shadow Wars, Unauthorized Military Operations Expose. The fallout was immediate. All 7 members of Phoenix 6 were detained under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Foster never made it to custody. His body was found in his cell the morning after his arrest. The congressional hearings lasted for months. New legislation, the Shaw Protocols, mandated strict oversight for covert military operations. The weapons caches discovered in 7 countries were dismantled under United Nations supervision. On a cool autumn morning, Alex Shaw stood before her father's new headstone at Arlington National Cemetery. It bore not just his name and rank, but the Presidential Medal of Freedom, awarded posthumously. Captain Carter stood beside her. Your father would be proud, he said quietly. You finished what he started. You made sure the truth couldn't be buried again. Later, Lieutenant Lawson approached. My brother was with Force Recon in Kandahar. His unit walked into an ambush that had Phoenix 6 fingerprints all over it. When Captain Carter contacted me about extracting you from Puerto Negro, I already knew what I owed you. Now at least their families know the truth about why they died, Alex said. It matters, ma'am. The truth always matters. 3 weeks later, Alex received a position at the Naval Academy as head of a newly formed ethics and oversight training program for future officers. The plaque on her new office door bore a simple inscription beneath her name and rank. You can't kill someone who was already trained to die. You can't abandon someone who never learned the meaning of surrender. Words that had once been her personal mantra, now transformed into a reminder for every future officer who passed through her program. Alex Shaw had returned from Puerto Negro not just as a survivor, but as a reckoning. The ghost had completed her mission, and some ghosts, it turned out, changed the world before they faded back into legend.